Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning Blaque in once again to Authentic Black Goddess TV. I'm your host, QueenAShakur. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. You can follow me on Instagram at QueenAShakur. Also, you can follow the QueenAShakur fan page, and you can follow me on Twitter at DGoddess27. Okay, so let's get into it. So a racist man in Florida was sentenced to 18 months in jail or in prison because he was making all these racist, threatening, leaving these messages for a black coach by the name of Jamil Jones. Now, Jamil was convicted of killing someone after he punched them in a fight. Now, this was in 2018. So when he went to court, he wasn't given any prison time. He was, in fact, given probation and community service. And I believe he may have paid a fine. But at the end of the day, this racist little devil, well, he was upset because that was just a minuscule sentence for him. And it was a slap on the wrist. And he clearly didn't think that justice had been served, which I find interesting because numerous times, and most of the time, when black folk are killed, especially by the police, even by racist devils like George Zimmerman, right? They don't get any type of justice. Okay. And people like him, it's interesting. They don't have anything to say about that. But when the tables are turned, they actually are so upset and they want to scream, that it's not fair. And they want to make all these threats and, act as vigilantes. Okay. Also, I think it's interesting to note that the parents of the man who was killed in the fight, they actually said they don't want to accept any condolences from the person who did it, the coach or the former coach, Jamil Jones, or his family. They said they'll never accept it. And so that just goes to speak to the fact that I told you numerous of times that these people do not ever forgive. Okay. Oftentimes they resort to violence and vigilantism, but it is always our people who are always so forgiving. And it just behooves me that these same people, they want to depict us as being so nefarious. Okay. When they usually don't have any ounce of empathy, or they don't want to understand or want an explanation, justification. They just simply don't want to forgive. Okay. And the thing is, Jamil Jones, he didn't intend to kill this man. After he punched him, the man fell to the ground and hit his head on the sidewalk. And yes, it was Jamil Jones's fault. But let's remember, when you're talking about murder, you have to talk about mens rea, right? You have to talk about things like malice aforethought. You have to determine whether the person who committed the crime actually had malicious intent. Did they actually intend at the time of the actions they took to kill this person? And which he clearly did. So that all being said, I'm going to first show you the video, the report of what they say happened and of the parents speaking. And then I'll let you hear what the racists had to say and why they were so upset. All right. Everyone, please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time I go live.
Thankfully, Voya provides comprehensive solutions and shows me how to get the most out of my workplace benefits. Voya helps me feel like I got it all under control.
Voya, well planned, well invested, well protected.
Shandor Sabo came to New York to celebrate a family wedding. Tonight, his parents mourn the 35-year-old's death.
It's just devastating that people
He's taken from us this early.
Today, Sabo's death ruled a homicide. The man charged with assaulting him, Wake Forest assistant basketball coach Jamil Jones, now sidelined from that job and potentially facing more legal trouble. What is the range of charges that can be considered here?
The high end of charges would be a criminally negligent homicide. That means that the defendant disregarded an obvious risk.
Sabo, who witnesses say was intoxicated, early Sunday morning knocked on car windows looking for his taxi or Uber and banged on Jones's SUV. Jones got out and allegedly punched him, sending Sabo to the pavement, then left the scene.
His face had been hit so hard that his tooth came out.
Officials say Sabo died Tuesday after suffering multiple skull fractures. Thursday, Jones turned himself in. In a statement, the father of two's family offered their deepest condolences.
I'm not ever going to accept your condolences. You're a father of two, whoever you are. I was a mother of two. How would you feel?
Two lives dramatically changed in a moment. Ann Thompson, NBC News, New York.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking.
So, as you can see, they clearly are not talking about forgiveness. They don't really care what he or his family has to say. They're upset because their son is dead, and rightfully so. At the end of the day, my point is this. When racist people kill black people are so quick to say that they forgive them, even though the people have not asked for their forgiveness. That is my whole point. Okay, so now with that all being said, after this all happened, and as I told you, the coach who did this, Jamil Jones, he didn't get any prison time. He simply got probation, like 3 years probation, paying a fine, and community service. So now a Florida man has been sentenced to 18 months for racist threats made against Jamil Jones. So the man who did this, his name is Michael Feeney, and he's actually 61 years old. He's a retiree from Palm City. Now, he was sentenced in Brooklyn federal court Friday for threatening to kill Jamil Jones, a disgraced coach who was convicted in February of 2020 for the one-punch death of a man near a Long Island City hotel. Now, Feeney left numerous threatening messages with Jones's attorney, Christopher Renfro, who is also black, by the way. And in July of 2020, shortly after the former coach was sentenced to 3 years probation for third-degree assault, this is when the harassing, threatening phone calls began. So Jones, who was the assistant coach for the Wake Forest University in North Carolina, punched Sander Sabo in the early hours of August the 5th, 2018, in front of the 41 10th Street. And they say Sabo, who is white, hit his head on the pavement and died just a few days later. Now, Jones was sentenced to 1,500 hours of community service and fined $1,000. So Feeney took exception to that sentence, arguing that it was too lenient, and he made a number of racist threats towards Jones, as well as racist comments and statements to his attorney. Now, he indicated that by killing Jones, he would get a modest sentence, given what was handed down to Jones. So I want you to pay attention. Basically, what this racist devil was saying in his threats is that if Jones got such a minimal sentence, then hey, if I kill him, then I'll too get a minimal sentence. That's what he said. So he said, this is for the jigger lover. This is what Feeney said in a voicemail that was left with Jones's attorney, according to court documents. Now, the judge made it perfectly clear, he says, that we can beat him to death and we get probation and community service. So he's talking about beating Jones to death and just thinking, oh, I'm just going to get probation or community service. So Feeney then said on the call that Renfro should tell Jones to hire security. He needs to hire a lot of security to protect his family because he said he knows where his family lives. So he says, we will execute that jigger's family. And this is what he said, according to court documents. He says, they will be hunted down and effing beaten to death. Clearly trying to be a vigilante, all right? And wanting to enact the same punishment upon Jones and his family that he feels was enacted upon the tourist that was killed. Now, Feeney attempted to conceal his telephone number that he was calling from by simply dialing star 67. However, federal authorities were able to trace the number to Feeney's wife. And through other recordings, investigators were also able to confirm that it was, in fact, his voice that was making these phone calls. Now, Feeney did not even know the man who was killed, nor, was he friends with his family or any of those things, right? And so Jones was not the only person to draw Feeney's bigoted concern. According to prosecutors, they said he had a pattern of these type of actions. Prosecutors said that Feeney made more than 200 calls to members of Congress, to media companies, to government agencies, and to organizations such as Planned Parenthood and the Southern Poverty Law Center. And this happened between February the 7th of 2020 through July the 29th of 2020. Now, on July the 24th of 2020, Feeney left a threatening voicemail with the office of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, that included racial epithets and other derogatory terms that he said to her. He said she, AOC, should be lynched and she should be swinging from an effing tree. We're going to pray that someone cuts her head off. This is what he says. Now, on that same day, Feeney called up to the office of Illinois Congressman Bobby Rush and left a voicemail to him saying, "We are praying that every one of your family gets their heads cut off and they shite down their throats." In June of 2020, Feeney called the front office of the San Francisco 49ers team and told an assistant there who answered the phone that he was angry about a Black Lives Matter flag that was in fact flying in front of the team's stadium. And he also made threats about that because clearly he cannot stand to see a Black Lives Matter flag waving, right? So he says, "We have a list of employees and everyone is subject to beat downs on a regular basis every time they walk out of that building. And then hopefully everyone there will get stupid 19 and die for supporting a racist terrorist group." I'm sorry, not racist, for supporting a terrorist group. That's what he said. So he called Black Lives Matter a terrorist group and threatened to beat down everybody on a daily basis. I mean, what a thug, right? Is he clearly gangster? I mean, he thinks he is, apparently. Now, mind you, he's 61 years old. So he's really talking about beating people's behinds on a daily basis. Yeah, right. So now, prosecutors said that the calls were despicable acts and that Feeney deserved prison time for the racist threats against Jones. They say the language the defendant used on these threatening calls was disgusting, that were racially motivated and caused fear in the people who heard the calls, which was the defendant's intent. He was absolutely trying to intimidate, bully, and just basically threaten and harass them. Now, Feeney pleaded guilty to making the threats in December of 2020 as part of a plea deal agreement. He did not have a criminal record prior to the case. And so let me tell you something. This is why I say what I say when I discuss how when things happen to our people, they are so slow to admit that it was a hate crime. Even in this case, with him making those threats, that was a hate crime. He was making threats to kill somebody, talking about chopping off heads and all this stuff. He really wanted someone to be lynched. And so with that all being said, why didn't they charge him with a hate crime? They absolutely should have. And he meant everything that he said as far as I'm concerned. The only reason he didn't carry out any of these egregious things that he's talked about is because he was caught. Now, he tried to hide his number, trying to conceal it by dialing *67. But of course, the FBI can trace those things regardless. So they can find out who you are and where you are. And, it's interesting that he only got 15 months because if he had gotten the hate crime charge, he would have gotten substantially more. Okay, and I want you to pay attention because one thing they did say in the article is that he wasn't, Finney that is, they said he wasn't a member of any hate group. Question is, how do they know that? Did he ask them? Did they check with all of the hate groups in the country to see whether or not his name was on the roster? I'm just curious. How do they know that? I'm sure they don't. You see, but they said that so we wouldn't complain about the fact that they never charged him with a hate crime. And that's absolutely, in my opinion, what he should have been charged with. So anyway, with that all being said, everyone please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all. And the next time something racist or egregious happens to you at the hands of devils who think they're supremacists, I wouldn't be so quick to talk about forgiveness, seeing as how they never have the same energy for us, and also seeing as how they never actually ask for your forgiveness, okay? Yeah, so with that all being said, everyone please enjoy the rest of this day, and I hope to talk to you all again soon. Peace.